and that's Jaire Alexander is now available to sign wherever he wants. And some reports have come out since the Packers have released him that, man, they have been trying to trade him for a while now. It was reported, I believe Albert Breer reported this, that he was offered a restructured contract that was pretty heavily incentive-based for Jaire Alexander that would have still made him a free agent next offseason, which he probably would have wanted. So it was basically like, hey, do you want to stick in Green Bay for at least one more season? Let's test you out. Let's see if you're healthy. And let's see if maybe we can come to an agreement a year from now to keep you on the team. And Alexander didn't want that. And so after that, they tried to trade him around free agency. They tried to trade him during the draft, and they couldn't find anybody that was willing to take on his contract, and that's ultimately why he gets released. Now, Alexander, he's still just 28 years old. He is still a great cornerback when he is fully healthy. The last time that he played over 1,000 snaps in a season was 2020, but during that season, he had an elite 91.9 coverage grade. But even throughout the injuries, which I had written them down here, he has only played 15 games, at least 15 games, one time since that 2020 season, and that was in 2022. In 2021, he played just 4 games because of his shoulder injury. In 2023, he played just 7 games due to a back and shoulder injury. And then last year in 2024, he played just 7 games because he had a quad injury to start, and then he had a PCL injury after that. And so this dude just hasn't been healthy. And for the Packers, the best ability is availability at this point. And you could tell, talking about Jaire Alexander, how frustrated they were, whether it was Brian Gutekunst, their general manager, or Matt LaFleur, their head coach. They're frustrated that their top corner, who they're trying to build their secondary identity around, is not out there on the field. But even through all the injury, Jaire's never had a single season coverage grade below 73 in his entire career. Like, this dude is one of the best corners in the game. There's no question about it. And so just your thoughts here, Dalton, on the Packers ultimately releasing Jaire Alexander. I have some thoughts on, I'm wondering why they didn't hit corner a little bit more throughout the offseason, specifically in the draft. Packers fans seem to be okay with their current situation, which is a combination of Keyshawn Nixon, who played well last year. He could play outside corner for you. Nate Hobbs, I guess, is going to play outside corner for you. You signed him from the Raiders. He's sort of that inside-out type of slot and outside corner. I guess they're going to play him on the outside because Javon Bullard is probably going to be more of your slot defender because they played him as sort of a safety slot hybrid like he was played at Georgia. And then you've got Carrington Valentine, who's sort of that third cornerback behind them because they don't have Eric Stokes either. So that's the cornerback room for Green Bay. You know, I even thought this isn't just hindsight from releasing Alexander. I thought of this during draft weekend as well. They had the opportunity to draft Trey Amos in the second round, and they took Anthony Belton over him. And, you know, they had the opportunity to draft Quincy Riley in the 5th round over Baron Sorrell, which I like Belton and Sorrell. I want to make it clear, like, I don't hate either of those players, but you knew that this Alexander move was coming. So very clearly they're just okay with their cornerback room. And Dalton, to me, that's more faith than I would have in a division that, my goodness, feels like it's just going to be a race to 40 points every single week.
Yeah, I think you look at the Packers now, and I know that we need a little bit of a bounce back from Jordan Love. We've talked about that. I think the biggest concern now has to just be with their pass defense as a whole, right? Because they really struggled to rush the passer, especially with 4 pass rushers last year. They need guys like Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt, those guys to step up front. But now that they're so thin at cornerback, and look at, you just mentioned it, look at the division you're playing in and the weapons you have to deal with when you're talking about Detroit with St. Brown and Jamison Williams, the Bears with all the weapons they've got this offseason, DJ Moore and Luther Burden, Colson Loveland, all those guys. The Vikings, obviously, with Jefferson and Addison. I mean, if you can't cover in this division, you're going to have a major problem. The Lions have seen that before. The Bears have seen that before, and especially with a lack of pass rush. The Packers' pass defense, for me, might be the biggest concern on their entire team. And you mentioned it, if they get in all these shootouts and we need to bounce back from Jordan Love and he's trying to force things down the field, there's a scenario where this could go very, very wrong. So I'm with you. I'd be very concerned about the lack of top end and even the lack of depth at cornerback for him. And that's coupled with a pass rush unit that was bottom 10 in the league last year, especially when they weren't blitzing. Jeff Hafley may have to get more aggressive up front and force it to help these guys out in coverage. But it's a concern for me. I think especially with those high-flying offenses that you're going to see in the NFC North, like you mentioned, I'm very worried about this Packers defense.
We'll see. It's like I said, it's going to be. Now, what about potential landing spots? Potential landing spots. The Vikings would be fun, right? Obviously, just because of the rivalry with Justin Jefferson, and they need it. The Vikings are trying to replace. Shoot, I think it's at least over 1,500. It might be over like 1,900 snaps at cornerback that they had last year with Shaq Griffin no longer on the team. Stephon Gilmore's not there anymore. Cam Bynum, if you just want to throw in like overall secondary players, also no longer there. So they're replacing a lot of snaps in their secondary. So I think they could use Jaire Alexander just from, hey, we need to feel better about who we have at cornerback there. The Eagles are a team that I threw out there. They've got Cooper DeJean. They have Quinyon Mitchell. They're moving on from Darius Slay. He's not there. He's in Pittsburgh anymore. Do you want to bring a veteran in? They don't have Isaiah Rodgers either. Isaiah Rodgers is also gone from that group. I think Carolina's sort of a wild card here, depending on how they view their team currently. Alexander also grew up in the Charlotte area. He played high school football just outside of Charlotte, so like it's a little bit of a homecoming for him in that regard if he were to sign with the Panthers. I think the Ravens also sort of make sense with them moving on from Brandon Stevens. Sure, they signed Chidobe Awuzie, but that's just a 1 year. I think it was around a $1 million, $2 million deal, so it's not like they were breaking the bank to bring him in, and he's scheduled to start for them as an outside corner, so I think they could be interested as well, but any of those landing spots or any others jump out to you for Alexander services?
I think when it comes to contenders, you mentioned the three. The Eagles have the cap space to do it almost just for the fun of it because they're so loaded and you can just do the same thing, replace Darius Slay with Alexander and throw him out there on the outside. The Rams are the one that I think, for me, they need him the most. I think at cornerback and linebacker, those are the two spots that concern me with the Rams defense. But if they bring in Alexander, and one of the things that you look at when it comes to splits, over the last 3 years, got an 86.5 zone coverage grade and just a 68.8 man coverage grade. So you look at those fits you're talking about when it's the Eagles, when it's the Rams. I even think about if they could find any money to do it, I think the Atlanta Falcons he'd be a great addition to. But when you're looking at the contenders, Eagles, Rams, Ravens make sense because they can move Marlon Humphrey back into the slot like they had the second half of last year. But to me, the Rams jump out, and we'll see the other factor in this might be who is trading for Jalen Ramsey, right? And the Rams have obviously been in that mix as well. That you wonder which one of those things is going to happen first. Is it going to be the Ramsey trade? Is Alexander just going to get proactive and sign somewhere? Which market is going to affect the other first? But I think the Rams, between one of those two guys, they're definitely in on it. And I would expect that they're going to be heavily in on signing either because they don't have a ton of a high-end talent at corner. You could argue if Alexander is healthy, he's easily the best corner on that team if he joins them.
Yep. The Rams are a good call out as well. That was one of the first teams that I thought of. So I'm glad that you brought that team up there because I do agree with that one.